Some names make you wonder what the parents were thinking. We are diving into the 33 most absurd baby names legally given in the United States, a journey into the outer limits of parental creativity. You will discover the wild stories behind children named after social media trends, deadly poisons, and even household furniture. Why would someone name their child after a sports network or a video game character? And where do we draw the line between unique and unkind? What is the most unusual name you have ever heard? The digital world truly left its mark with a baby girl named #. This was not a nickname or an online alias, but the legal name given to a newborn. The story broke into public consciousness around 2012, a time when social media platforms were solidifying their grip on daily life. The symbol itself, once simply called a pound sign, had been reborn as a powerful tool for grouping conversations and trends. For this child's parents, it represented something more, a permanent link to the era she was born into. The public reaction was a mix of disbelief and fascination. Headlines questioned the parents' judgment, while late-night comedians mined the situation for jokes. Many wondered if this was a clever publicity stunt or a genuine, albeit extreme, attempt at originality. At its core, the name # signifies a profound shift. It blurs the line between our digital and real-world identities, suggesting that what trends online can be etched onto a birth certificate. It raises a compelling question about modern parenting. Are we, in our quest to be unique, beginning to see our children as extensions of the digital landscape, their identities forever linked to the fleeting trends of the internet? This single name serves as a powerful symbol of our times, a permanent marker of a moment when online culture stepped directly into the nursery. From the digital frontier of #, we venture into the world of competitive fandom with a name that seems ripped from a television screen. A young boy in the United States was legally named ESPN after the global sports broadcasting network. Pronounced in the same way as the channel, his name is a constant, living advertisement for a brand. The reasons behind such a choice are as complex as they are curious. For some parents, a deep, all-consuming passion for sports can blur the lines between hobby and identity. Naming a child after the very entity that delivers the games, the highlights, and the drama could feel like the ultimate tribute, a way to cement a family legacy rooted in athletic celebration. It is a declaration that in this household, sports are not just entertainment, they are a core part of life. There is also the powerful, modern drive for uniqueness. In a sea of Jacobs and Ethans, a name like ESPN guarantees instant recognition, and for better or worse, ensures the child will never be just another face in the crowd. It is a name born from a desire to break conventions and make a statement that is impossible to ignore. But what are the real-world implications for a person carrying this name through life? Every introduction, every first day of school, every job application becomes a moment of explanation. The name precedes the person, instantly framing them within the context of a corporate brand. It invites constant questions, jokes, and assumptions before he even has a chance to speak for himself. While the intention may be rooted in love and a desire for distinction, the burden of such a namesake is a heavy one to carry from the playground to the professional world. It forces us to ask where the line is between a parent's personal passion and a child's right to their own independent identity. While sports fandom inspired one name, another child's identity was shaped by pure, unadulterated fantasy. A young girl in New Zealand was given the legal name Talula, does the Hula from Hawaii. This was not a playful nickname or a private family joke. It was the official title on her birth certificate, a sentence masquerading as a name. The story gained international attention when a family court judge in New Zealand presided over a case involving the girl, who was so embarrassed by her name that she refused to tell anyone what it was. She had invented a false name to use with her friends, living in constant fear of being exposed. the judge ultimately granted a child welfare agency's request to remove the child from her parents' custody, specifically citing the psychological harm caused by the name as a key factor. This case sent shockwaves around the world, particularly in the United States, where the concept of naming freedom is fiercely guarded. It forced a difficult and necessary conversation. Where does parental freedom end and a child's welfare begin? Can a name truly be a form of humiliation or even abuse? The story of Talula, does the Hula from Hawaii, became a powerful catalyst. It moved the discussion beyond simple oddity and into the realm of child protection, prompting many to wonder if legal systems should have the power to step in and protect a child from a name that could become a lifelong source of pain and social isolation. From the legal battle over Talula, we turn to another name that sparked a national conversation, but from a very different perspective. Moxie Crime Fighter is the real name of Penn Jillette's daughter, the famous magician and skeptic from the duo Penn and Teller. This was not a case of parents unaware of the potential consequences, but a deliberate public choice made by a celebrity known for his provocative views. The name Moxie itself is a classic, if uncommon, virtue name, suggesting courage and energy, but it is the shocking and uncompromising middle name Crime Fighter that pushes this into entirely new territory. It transforms a simple statement of character into a bold, almost fictional identity. This choice reflects a fascinating tension. On one hand, it is a powerful act of creative expression, a rejection of bland, traditional naming conventions. For a performer like Gillette, whose entire career is built on challenging norms, giving his daughter such a name is a consistent extension of his public persona. It declares that this child will not be defined by ordinary expectations. Yet the question immediately arises, what is it like to grow up with a name that sounds like a comic book hero? Unlike Talula's name, which was a source of shame, Moxie Crime Fighter Gillette is being raised in an environment that celebrates this uniqueness. Her parents have the resources and a supportive community to potentially buffer her from the ridicule other children might face. But the name still travels with her into the wider world, into classrooms and eventually job interviews where first impressions are everything. Does the confidence instilled by her family outweigh the constant explanations and potential judgments she will encounter? This name forces us to examine the line between gifting a child a narrative of strength and inadvertently saddling them with a persona they must constantly live up to or explain away. It is the ultimate experiment in whether a name can be an asset instead of a burden when backed by love and privilege. But creative expression through naming is not exclusive to the world of magic. Actor Jason Lee, known for his roles in films like Almost Famous, chose a name for his son that was pulled directly from an alternative rock song. He named the boy Pilot Inspektor, a direct reference to a track by the band Grandaddy. This choice feels less like a statement of defiance and more like a personal tribute, a piece of art permanently attached to a new life. It highlights a fascinating phenomenon, the powerful influence of celebrity culture on our perception of names. When a famous person chooses an unusual name, it is often covered by entertainment news and dissected on social media. This public exposure does something remarkable. It slowly desensitizes the broader public to the name's strangeness. What was once considered absurd can, through repeated exposure from a beloved celebrity, begin to seem quirky, creative, or even cool. A wave of unique celebrity names followed, from Apple and Blue Ivy to Northwest and Audio Science. Each one pushes the boundaries a little further, making the unconventional feel more accessible to everyone else. For parents looking for a unique name but fearing judgment, a celebrity's choice can provide a kind of social permission slip. It reassures them that they are not alone in wanting to break from tradition, yet this creates a curious paradox. In the quest for absolute uniqueness, are we all just following a new trend set by the famous? The name Pilot Inspektor stands at this crossroads, a deeply personal artistic nod that also became a small part of a much larger cultural shift, challenging what we consider a normal name, one famous baby at a time. From the world of music-inspired names, we encounter one that sounds less like a person and more like a university department. Audio Science, the son of actress Shannon Sossamon, carries a name that is profoundly abstract. It does not evoke a character or a brand, but rather an entire field of inquiry, the study of sound and its properties. This choice moves beyond simple creativity and into the realm of conceptual philosophy. What does it mean to name a child after an idea? For some parents, it represents a hope that their child will embody the qualities of that concept, becoming inquisitive, analytical, and tuned into the fabric of the universe. The name is a wish cast into the future, a desire for a life dedicated to discovery and understanding. It is arguably one of the purest forms of a virtue name, where the virtue is not courage or joy, but the relentless pursuit of knowledge itself. Yet the practical challenges of such a name are immense. From his earliest days, Audio Science is introduced not as an individual, but as a concept. His name demands an explanation before any real conversation can even begin. In a school setting, will teachers and classmates see the boy, or will they see the walking, talking idea? There is a risk that the name could feel impersonal, a label so grand and intellectual that it overshadows the messy, emotional, and perfectly human person who bears it. Every time he has to spell it out or clarify its meaning, his identity is tied to an academic discipline rather than his own developing personality. It forces us to ask a difficult question: can a name be so conceptually beautiful that it forgets to be human? While the intention is to inspire a life of learning, the reality is that Audio Science must first navigate the very ordinary, often unforgiving, social world of childhood with a name that is anything but. Caitlin is a lovely and popular name, but what if you felt it was just a little too common? One parent's answer was to rewrite it entirely, resulting in the legally recognized name Lynn. The pronunciation remains the same, but the spelling replaces the letters IT with the Roman numeral for 8, VIII. This is more than a simple misspelling. It is a deliberate fusion of traditional letters and ancient numbering, a modern puzzle etched onto a birth certificate. It represents a powerful and growing trend, the desire to carve out a unique identity in a world of endless digital profiles. When every name seems to be taken, altering its very architecture can feel like the ultimate act of parental creativity, a guarantee that your child will stand out from the very first glance. But this cleverness comes with a practical cost that lasts a lifetime. Imagine being a young child learning to spell your own name. While other children are mastering A, B, and C, you are grappling with VIII. The first day of school roll call becomes a recurring moment of anxiety as teachers pause, stumble, and inevitably mispronounce. Every doctor's appointment, every job application, every time you need to give your name over the phone becomes a mini lesson in orthography. You are not just stating your name, you are explaining it, defending its logic, and spelling it out letter by Roman numeral. The intention behind Lynn is clear, a wish for a child to be one of a kind. Yet it forces us to wonder if that uniqueness is a gift or a constant, low-grade administrative burden. Does this creative spelling empower a child, or does it inadvertently make the simple act of introducing oneself a complicated affair? While some names draw from music or abstract concepts, others are forged in the fires of pure fantasy. A child in the United States was legally named Dovahkiin, the title of the player character in the epic video game The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. In the game, Dovahkiin is not just a name, it is a prophecy. It means dragonborn, a hero with the soul of a dragon and the power to speak the ancient language of the dragons to cast powerful spells. For the parents, this name was a tribute to a world they loved deeply, a realm of epic quests and heroic deeds that provided them with countless hours of escape and adventure. This choice is a powerful symbol of a major cultural shift, where the passions once confined to comic book stores and gaming conventions are now proudly entering the mainstream, even influencing the most fundamental decision of what to call our children. The rise of geek culture has transformed these niche interests into shared cultural touchstones, and naming a child Dovahkiin is a declaration that these stories matter, that they are just as valid a source of inspiration as any classic novel or historical figure. It reflects a generation of parents who want to pass on their own passions, to gift their child a narrative of inherent power and destiny from the moment they are born. But what is the reality for the child who must carry this mythical title into a very non-magical world? His life will be a constant dialogue between a grand fictional legacy and the mundane challenges of growing up. While his parents see a dragon-slaying hero, his classmates on the playground might simply hear a strange and complicated word. Every introduction requires him to explain the origin of his name, to essentially justify his parents' fandom before he can even establish his own identity. The name Dovahkiin sets a tremendously high bar, an expectation of uniqueness and strength that a real person may struggle to embody. It forces us to consider if we are naming the children we have or the legendary characters we wish they could be. From the epic fantasy of Dovahkiin, we descend into something far more sinister and real. A child was legally named Cyanide, a word synonymous with swift and deadly poison. This is not a quirky spelling or a fandom tribute, but a direct reference to a substance that causes agonizing death. The ethical implications here are profound and deeply unsettling. Where does parental freedom end and the responsibility to protect a child from harm begin? Most people would agree that naming a child after a lethal toxin crosses a fundamental line, moving from the realm of the unusual into the territory of potential psychological abuse. The name itself becomes a label, a dark cloud that follows a child through life. Imagine the first day of school, the teacher reading that name from the roster. The other children, perhaps learning about safety and danger, would immediately recognize its meaning. The teasing, the isolation, the constant association with death would be an inescapable burden. This choice forces a difficult legal question, one that America has largely avoided. Unlike countries such as Germany or New Zealand, which have official registries of approved names, the United States offers remarkable freedom. Parents can choose almost any name, with very few restrictions typically reserved for obscenity or the use of numerals. The system operates on a powerful belief in individual liberty and parental rights. But the case of Cyanide challenges this principle to its core. Is it truly a right to brand a child with a name that signifies destruction? While the name itself cannot physically harm the child, the social and emotional damage could be severe and lasting. It invites a lifetime of negative reactions, from raised eyebrows to outright rejection, and could even impact future educational or professional opportunities. This single name, Cyanide, acts as a stark test of our societal values. It asks us whether our commitment to absolute freedom should ever be tempered by a greater commitment to a child's right to a name that does not preordain a life of explanation and pain. The name number 16 bus shelter feels like a piece of a city map suddenly given human form. It is a location, a specific point in space, transformed into a person's legal identity. The story behind such a name is almost certainly deeply personal, a hidden narrative known only to the family. Perhaps the parents met at that very bus shelter, a chance encounter in the rain that blossomed into a lifelong love. Maybe it was the place where a life-changing idea was conceived, or where a moment of profound clarity arrived while waiting for the number 16 bus. For them, this ordinary piece of urban infrastructure is not mundane at all. It is a sacred site, the origin point of their most cherished story. Naming their child after it is a way to permanently honor that memory, to tie a new life directly to a moment of magic they never want to forget. It represents a beautiful, if perplexing, attempt to find profound meaning in the everyday world around us. Yet, for the child, this personal tribute becomes their public-facing identity. The name carries no inherent clues to its sentimental value. It simply presents as a literal, physical object. Every time they introduce themselves, they are met with confusion or disbelief. They must either explain the deeply intimate story behind their name, effectively sharing a private family legend with strangers, or endure the assumption that their parents were simply devoid of creativity. This creates a strange paradox, a name born from immense personal significance that, to the outside world, appears completely random and absurd. It forces the child to constantly navigate the gap between their family's internal world and the external society's perception. Does this act of naming celebrate a beautiful moment, or does it inadvertently turn a child into a living, breathing monument to a story that is not their own? Midnight Chardonnay paints a picture of a very specific kind of adult sophistication. This name evokes a scene of late-night elegance, a glass of wine, and an aura of curated indulgence. It feels less like a name for a child and more like a mood, a brand, or perhaps the title of a noir film. The parents likely chose it for its melodic sound and the luxurious, romantic imagery it conjures. Chardonnay, a varietal of wine, carries connotations of celebration and refinement, while midnight suggests mystery and allure. Combined, they create a name that is undeniably atmospheric, a poetic nod to a moment of quiet adult pleasure. Yet, this very ambience is the source of its complexity. From the moment this child is born, she is associated with an alcoholic beverage. Every introduction, from pediatrician appointments to parent-teacher conferences, will involve stating a name that is intrinsically linked to drinking. The potential for misinterpretation is immense. Will teachers or other parents make subconscious judgments about the family's values? As she grows older, the name could become a source of awkwardness or even teasing among peers who are quick to latch onto any unusual detail. What sounds like a beautiful, grown-up name to the parents might feel like a heavy, premature label to the child. It forces her to embody a concept of mature indulgence long before she can possibly understand it. This name lives in a difficult space between artistic expression and social perception, gifting a newborn with an identity steeped in the world of adult leisure, and asking whether a name can ever be too evocative for its own good. The name Saint West carries a weight of expectation from the very first syllable. Chosen by Kanye West and Kim Kardashian for their son, this name is not merely an identifier, it is a declaration. In a single word, it conjures images of moral purity, divine favor, and an almost untouchable level of perfection. This is the pinnacle of the aspirational name trend, where parents, particularly those in the spotlight, bestow titles that are less about who the child is and more about who they hope he will become. It is a name that feels destined for greatness, a heavy crown placed upon a newborn's head. The media frenzy that erupted around the announcement was a global event, dissecting every possible meaning and implication. Was it a statement of faith, a reflection of Kanye's own perceived transformation, or simply the ultimate power move in a family built on branding? This public spectacle highlights how celebrity baby names have become a form of entertainment in themselves, generating headlines and social media buzz that can eclipse even major news stories. For a child like Saint, this means his identity was a topic of public debate long before he could even speak his own name. He will never know a life where his name was a private matter. It is forever intertwined with his parents' fame and the global narrative they cultivate. This raises a profound question about the nature of identity in the modern age. When your name is chosen for its power and immediately blasted across the world, is it a gift of immense privilege or a predetermined script that is incredibly difficult to rewrite? Saint West will have to discover who he is beneath the weight of a name that asks him to be nothing less than perfect. A nickname can be a term of endearment, a private family joke, but what happens when that nickname becomes the only name the world knows? The story of Michael Jackson's son, Prince Michael II, provides a startling look at this very phenomenon. The world first saw the boy during a now infamous incident in Berlin, when the king of pop dangled his infant son over a hotel balcony railing, shielding the baby's face with a small blanket. In that shocking moment, a media identity was born, and the child became forever known as Blanket. It is crucial to understand that Blanket was never his legal name. It was a nickname that the media and public latched onto with relentless force. For Michael Jackson, a man who felt robbed of his own childhood, the name was likely intended as a symbol of comfort and protection, a soft shield against the harsh glare of the spotlight. Yet, the effect was the opposite. The nickname, repeated endlessly in tabloids and on television, became a source of global curiosity and ridicule. It stripped the boy of his formal identity, Prince Michael II, and replaced it with a label that sounded less like a person and more like an object. This raises a difficult question about the power of public perception. Even though his legal name was something else entirely, the world decided he was Blanket. The nickname, meant to be private, became an inescapable part of his public persona, a constant reminder of that terrifying balcony scene and his father's controversial parenting. It forces us to consider the immense weight a simple nickname can carry when it is amplified by global fame, and where the line truly lies between a family's private world and a child's right to their own untainted identity. Exad Dark Sidereal sounds less like a name and more like a coordinate for a distant galaxy, given by musician Grimes and tech billionaire Elon Musk to their daughter. This name is a dense fusion of science fiction and high-concept philosophy. The first part, exa, is a prefix in the metric system representing a quintillion, an almost unimaginably vast number. It evokes the scale of computing and data, a nod to a future built on technological abundance. Dark Sidereal is even more layered, suggesting the dark side of a moon or planet, a place of perpetual shadow and mystery. The unusual A ligature adds an archaic, almost elvish quality, blending ancient language with futuristic ideas. This name is a perfect reflection of the parents' public personas, a couple deeply invested in concepts of space colonization, artificial intelligence, and a transhumanist future. It is not merely a label, but a statement of belief, a declaration that their child is a citizen of the cosmos, born from a union of code and poetry. Yet the philosophical weight of such a name is immense. To be called the dark side of the real is to be defined by opposition and enigma from birth. It positions the child as an outsider to conventional reality, a being of shadow and substance in a world that may not understand her. While the name is undeniably creative and rich with intention, it also feels like a tremendous burden to place on a newborn. It asks a profound question about the nature of identity in an increasingly technological age. Are we naming our children for the world they will live in, or for the speculative futures we hope to build, even if that future remains forever on the horizon? Abde is a name that seems to defy the very purpose of a name, turning a child's identity into a simple sequence of letters. Pronounced Abcd, this choice ignited a firestorm of public reaction when the story went viral. The name was met with widespread mockery and disbelief, with many online commenters and media outlets quick to label it as the height of parental irresponsibility. Headlines question the mother's intelligence and motives, reducing a complex personal decision to a punchline for public consumption. Yet the mother stood firmly by her choice. She explained that she intended it to be unique, a name that would ensure her daughter stood out and was never just one of many in a crowd. For her, it was an act of love and creativity, a desire to give her child a truly one-of-a-kind start in life. This defense, however, was often drowned out by the roar of judgment, sparking a deeper and more uncomfortable conversation about classism. Critics were quick to assume the parents were uneducated or foolish, a snap judgment that often carries subtle biases about socioeconomic status. Would the reaction have been the same if a wealthy, celebrity couple had chosen the name? The public shaming of Abde forces us to confront our own prejudices. We readily celebrate unique names from the privileged, viewing them as bold or artistic, while often condemning similar choices from everyday people as absurd or neglectful. This name became a litmus test for where we, as a society, direct our criticism and why. It asks whether our outrage is truly about the child's well-being, or if it is sometimes a mask for snobbery, a way to feel superior to those whose choices we do not understand. The story of Abde is not just about 5 letters on a birth certificate. It is a mirror reflecting the complex and often unfair ways we judge one another. Asher 12 stands as perhaps the most cryptically engineered name on this entire list. Crafted by the same couple who gave us Exad Dark Cider Ale, this name for their son is a complex code waiting to be deciphered. The first part, X, represents the unknown variable, a symbol for the infinite possibility they saw in their newborn. The second character, AE, is a ligature from the Old Norse and Latin alphabets that Grimes explained is her artistic spelling for the word ash, referencing the elm tree as well as a type of artificial intelligence. Finally, a 12 refers to the Archangel reconnaissance aircraft, a precursor to the SR-71 Blackbird, which the parents described as the coolest plane ever made. Together, the intended pronunciation is Asher 12, a name that sounds more like a next-generation software build than a human child. This choice immediately ran into a very earthly problem, California state law. The authorities in California, where the baby was born, do not permit the use of numerals, symbols, or diacritical marks on birth certificates. The official name had to be altered for legal acceptance, becoming Xaya 12, a compromise that only slightly reduced its otherworldly feel. This bureaucratic clash highlights a fascinating tension between boundless parental imagination and the rigid, practical systems that document our lives. It forces us to wonder, when a name is so personal and so layered with meaning that it becomes a private language, does it ultimately serve the child? Or does it become a story they must constantly tell to a world that was never given the key to decode it? Awesome is a word we use for pizza, for sunsets, for a perfectly executed play in a game. But as a legal name, it becomes a permanent label of expectation. Imagine the pressure of introducing yourself with a word that is not just a description, but a demand for a reaction. Your very identity is a superlative, an announcement that you are, by definition, impressive and extraordinary. This choice reflects a beautiful parental optimism, a hope that their child will embody pure, unadulterated greatness from their very first breath. It is a name born from the best of intentions, a wish for a life filled with confidence and triumph. Yet, the daily reality for a child named Awesome can be incredibly complex. Every minor failure, every moment of shyness, every bad day at school is framed in stark contrast to their name. A quiet child might feel like a disappointment. An average student might feel they are letting down their own identity. The name sets a bar that is impossibly high, a standard of constant excellence that no human being could reasonably maintain. It robs a child of the freedom to be simply okay, to have an off day, to be unremarkable without feeling like they are betraying the very first thing people learn about them. This trend of using powerful positive adjectives as names raises a difficult question about the stories we force upon our children. Are we giving them a goal to strive for, or are we pre-writing a narrative of their lives that they may not feel equipped to fulfill? A name like Awesome is not just a gift of confidence, it is a challenge issued at birth, one that a person must answer every single day of their life. LAT stands as a perfect symbol of the digital age, a name built for a world of usernames and email addresses. The parents intended it to be pronounced la-at, a creative phonetic interpretation where the at symbol is read as the word at. This choice represents a fascinating collision of modern communication and timeless tradition, an attempt to embed the very syntax of the internet into a human identity. It is a name that feels native to a keyboard, a piece of digital shorthand elevated to a legal signature for a new life. This ambition, however, immediately bumps against the rigid, physical world of government bureaucracy. Most states in the US have laws that explicitly prohibit the use of symbols, numbers, or diacritical marks on official birth certificates. The system is designed for the 26 letters of the alphabet, a centuries-old framework utterly unprepared for an at sign. This creates a fundamental conflict between a parent's desire for ultimate individuality and a society's need for standardized record-keeping. How does a hospital clerk file a name with a symbol? How does a computer database sort it? The practical reality is that it often cannot, forcing a compromise. In many cases, parents are told they must choose a different name, or more commonly, they must alter the spelling to fit the law, perhaps becoming Leet or Liat, stripping away the very symbolic creativity that defined their original choice. This ongoing tug of war highlights a deeper question about our evolving identities. As we live more of our lives online, using symbols and numbers to define our digital selves, are our legal systems destined to forever lag behind, forcing our most personal choices to conform to an analog world? The name LAT is a bold, if often thwarted, attempt to bridge that very gap, to claim a piece of our digital landscape as a rightful part of our human one. Perhaps the most persistent myth in the bizarre world of baby names involves a pair of twins named Orangejello and Lemonjello. This story has been told in schoolyards, shared on social media, and repeated as fact for decades, always with the same clever twist that the names are pronounced or Angelo and Lem Angelo. It is a perfect piece of American folklore, a tale that feels just plausible enough to be believed, yet too outrageous to be true. The reality is that despite its widespread circulation, there is no verifiable evidence that any child has ever been legally given these names. No birth certificates have surfaced, no official records confirm their existence. The story is an urban legend, a modern fairy tale passed from person to person. But why has this particular story endured with such remarkable strength? It taps into several deep-seated cultural anxieties. It plays on fears about uneducated or irresponsible parents, often with subtle racial and classist undertones, as the story is frequently told about families in low-income or minority communities. It also serves as a cautionary tale about the perceived erosion of tradition, a warning of what can happen when naming conventions are stretched to their absolute limit. The names themselves are clever, turning everyday objects into something that sounds vaguely sophisticated with a simple change in pronunciation, making the story both memorable and easily transmittable. The legend of Orangejello and Lemonjello is not really about names at all. It is a social barometer. It reveals our collective fascination with judging the choices of others and our need for stories that reinforce our own sense of normalcy. It persists because it allows us to point and laugh at an absurdity we can all agree upon, a fictional boundary that makes our own world feel a little more orderly and sane. The name phobia forces a child to wear their fear as a permanent identity. Unlike names that aim for uniqueness or honor a passion, this choice is rooted in the language of dread and anxiety. Phobia is not just a word, it is a clinical term for an intense, irrational fear that can be debilitating. To bestow this upon a child is to introduce them to the world with a label that signifies terror, a constant whisper of something to be afraid of. The psychological implications are profound and deeply troubling. From their earliest consciousness, this child would hear their name and eventually learn its meaning. They would discover that their very identity is synonymous with the concept of fear itself. This creates a powerful and potentially damaging feedback loop. Could a boy named Phobia become more anxious, more prone to developing actual phobias as he internalizes the meaning of his name? Names are not just labels, they are stories we tell about who we are, and this particular story is one of trepidation. It risks becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy where the child feels subconsciously pressured to live up to the fearful persona his name implies. Every challenge, every new situation is framed by an identity that expects him to be afraid. It is a heavy psychological burden, a pre-written narrative of insecurity that he must constantly fight against or, worse, surrender to. This choice moves beyond simple absurdity and into the realm of emotional weight, forcing us to ask where the line is between a parent's freedom of expression and a child's fundamental right to an identity that does not preordain a life of internal conflict. A name like Preacher carries an entire profession in its wake. It is not merely a suggestion or a hope, but a declaration, an identity forged in the fires of expectation from the very first breath. Unlike names that hint at abstract qualities, this is a direct and unambiguous job title. Imagine the weight of that from childhood onward, a constant, unspoken assumption that your life's path has been preordained, not by a divine calling, but by the words on your birth certificate. Every time he introduces himself, he is met with a raised eyebrow or a curious question. Is your father a minister? Are your parents deeply religious? The name Preacher sets a narrative in motion long before the boy has any say in the story of his own life. This choice is part of a long, complex tradition in American naming. For centuries, parents have drawn from the Puritan tradition of virtue names, bestowing upon their children labels like chastity, prudence, or faith. These names were intended as a constant moral guide, a reminder of the character the child was expected to cultivate. Similarly, occupational surnames like Smith, Cooper, or Baker were inherited from ancestors' trades, becoming family identifiers over generations. But naming a child Preacher in the modern era is different. It is a deliberate first-name adoption of a specific and demanding role, bypassing the subtlety of a virtue or the distance of a surname. It reflects a profound parental desire, a hope that their son will embody moral authority, spiritual leadership, and a life of service. Yet, this beautiful intention comes with a formidable burden. What if the boy grows up and feels no connection to the church? What if his talents lie in engineering or art or quiet contemplation? The name becomes a source of internal conflict, a daily reminder of a destiny he may not want for himself. It forces us to ask a difficult question about the limits of parental guidance. Are we giving our children a compass to help them find their way, or are we building the entire road for them and simply expecting them to walk it? A name like Preacher does not just suggest a path, it paves it, leaving very little room for the child to ever wander off and discover his own true calling. Another pair of names that has drifted through the public imagination for years are the twins Benson and Hedges. This story, much like the legend of Orangejello and Lemonjello, is often presented as fact, a shocking tale of parents naming their children after a popular brand of cigarettes. The narrative is compelling in its sheer audacity, suggesting a world where corporate logos and commercial products have become so deeply embedded in our culture that they can influence the most personal of decisions. It paints a picture of a society where brand loyalty transcends mere consumerism and becomes a fundamental part of family identity. Yet, despite its persistence, this story also appears to be an urban legend. No credible birth records have ever confirmed the existence of twins legally named after the tobacco brand. So why does this particular myth resonate so strongly? It taps into a very real and growing anxiety about the power of advertising. We live in an age of pervasive commercialism where product placement is subtle and sophisticated, and where children can recognize corporate mascots before they can read. The idea that this influence could extend all the way to the birth certificate is a terrifying prospect. It represents the ultimate victory of marketing, where a company's name is not just remembered, but is given to a new generation. This urban legend serves as a perfect allegory for our fears about losing our personal identities to the relentless tide of branding. It forces us to question where we draw the line between our own values and the messages sold to us every day. Even as a fiction, the story of Benson and Hedges holds a mirror to our world, asking if we are truly in control of our own stories, or if we are simply living out narratives written by corporate boardrooms. IKEA is more than a store, it is a global phenomenon, a labyrinth of affordable furniture and Swedish meatballs that has become a household name. So when parents choose this brand as the legal identity for their child, it signals something profound about our relationship with consumer culture. This is not an homage to a historical figure or a beloved relative. It is the elevation of a corporate logo to the status of a family legacy. The name IKEA is an acronym formed from the founder's initials and the farm he grew up on, but for the child who bears it, that corporate history becomes their personal introduction to the world. It represents a world where our deepest affiliations are not just with people or places, but with the brands that furnish our lives both literally and metaphorically. Every time this child says their name, they are referencing a multinational corporation, an immediate association with flat-pack bookshelves and assembly instructions. The intention might be rooted in a love for the brand's design, its affordability, or the simple joy it brings to creating a home, yet this choice blurs a critical line. It transforms a person into a walking advertisement, a living testament to a company's success. This trend extends far beyond a single furniture store, pointing to a broader cultural shift where commercial loyalty is worn as a badge of identity. What does it mean when the stories we choose for our children are not pulled from mythology or family history, but from the supermarket aisle? It suggests that the powerful narratives of marketing and branding have seeped into the most intimate of our decisions, framing our sense of self and family within the context of what we buy. The name IKEA forces a difficult question: are we celebrating our unique tastes, or are we allowing the marketplace to name the next generation? Google represents a new kind of modern tribute, a name drawn not from history or art, but from the very architecture of our daily lives. In a few documented cases, parents have legally named their child after the ubiquitous search engine, a choice that speaks volumes about our era. This is not merely a brand name, it is the gateway to all human knowledge, the answer to every question, the digital oracle we consult without a second thought. To name a child Google is to express a profound hope, a wish that this new person will be just as intelligent, just as connected, and just as indispensable as the platform itself. It is a parent's dream for a child who can navigate the world with effortless skill, finding answers and forging links in a complex, information-driven society. Yet, this hopeful symbolism crashes against the hard reality of human identity. A child named Google is not an omnipotent search algorithm. They are a person with bad days, moments of confusion, and a need to be loved for who they are, not for what they can retrieve. The name sets an impossible standard of intellectual perfection. More troublingly, it fundamentally commodifies a child's identity. Every introduction, every job application, becomes a moment where they are associated with a global corporate giant, a multi-billion-dollar entity whose policies and practices they have no control over. Their personal story is forever entangled with a company's brand narrative, a story of data collection and market dominance that is far removed from the intimate journey of a single human life. This name forces us to confront a difficult question about the world we are building. In our admiration for the tools that connect us, are we beginning to see our own children as extensions of that network, their value measured by their potential for efficiency and connectivity rather than their inherent humanity? The name Adolf Hitler represents a deliberate plunge into the darkest chapters of human history. In several documented cases within the United States, parents have attempted to give this name to their children, a choice that goes far beyond simple absurdity and into the territory of hateful symbolism. These incidents immediately trigger a powerful collision between the American principle of naming freedom and the state's responsibility to protect a child from harm. While the US generally allows parents immense leeway, most states have laws that prohibit names considered obscene or, in some cases, directly offensive. A name so inextricably linked to genocide, hatred, and unspeakable violence tests the absolute limits of that freedom. The government has, in fact, intervened to block such names, with judges and vital records officers refusing to issue a birth certificate for a child named Adolf Hitler, arguing it constitutes a form of psychological abuse and would subject the child to immediate and severe ostracism. The social consequences for a child burdened with this name are almost unimaginable. From his first day of kindergarten, the name would be a beacon for bullying, fear, and rejection. It would be a constant, inescapable association with pure evil, a shadow that would follow him through every classroom, every friendship, and every job interview for his entire life. This is not a unique name. It is a loaded weapon aimed directly at the child's own well-being. These cases force a difficult but necessary societal conversation. They ask us to define where our commitment to individual liberty must yield to a greater duty to protect the innocent from a legacy of hate, ensuring a child is not born into a world where his very identity is a battle he can never win. The name Messiah strikes at the very heart of identity and authority. In 2013, a child support case in Tennessee took a startling turn when a magistrate judge ordered a baby boy's name be changed, arguing that the name Messiah was a title earned only by Jesus Christ and that it could cause problems for the child in their predominantly Christian community. This was not an urban legend, but a real judicial order that ignited a firestorm of debate. The parents, who were not married, were in court to settle their child's surname, but the judge focused instead on the first name, declaring that the child deserved a name he could carry with pride in his community. The ruling immediately raised profound questions. Does a judge have the right to decide what is spiritually appropriate for a child, effectively privileging one religious interpretation over another? The mother's appeal argued that the decision violated her constitutional right to religious freedom, a core American principle. The case forced a public conversation about the difference between a parent's right to express their faith and the state's responsibility to protect a child from potential harm, even if that harm is social ostracism. While the higher court eventually overturned the ruling, siding with the mother and restoring the name Messiah, the legal battle left a lasting mark. It highlighted a deep tension in a nation built on religious liberty, where one person's profound expression of faith can be viewed by an authority figure as a social liability for a child. The story of this little boy forces us to ask a difficult question: where does our respect for religious freedom end and our duty to protect a child from the consequences of that freedom begin? The name marijuana carries a cultural and legal weight far heavier than its syllables suggest. Unlike a name inspired by nature or fantasy, this choice directly links a child's identity to a substance that remains federally illegal in the United States and is steeped in decades of social and political controversy. For the parents, this might have been an act of advocacy or a symbol of their personal liberation, a way to normalize a plant they believe in. Perhaps they see it as a tribute to its medicinal properties or a rejection of what they view as outdated prohibitions. Yet this personal statement becomes their child's public identity, a first impression that immediately invites a set of assumptions. Teachers, doctors, and other parents might unconsciously form judgments about the family's lifestyle before even meeting the child. The potential for legal complications, while perhaps not leading to direct intervention from child services, creates a constant low-level anxiety. Official forms, school registrations, and medical records all bear a name that is, in the eyes of federal law, associated with an illicit drug. This could trigger unnecessary scrutiny or bureaucratic delays at every stage of the child's life. But the most profound impact is on the child's social world. From the earliest age, their name is a punchline, a source of snickers on the playground and awkward questions from new friends. It forces them to constantly explain or defend their parents' values before they are old enough to understand them, let alone form their own. The name marijuana doesn't just aim for uniqueness, it makes the child a walking billboard for a complex adult issue, conflating their personal identity with a political and legal debate they had no part in creating. Even a global pandemic could not escape the world of unconventional baby names. During the peak of the health crisis, a pair of twins in India were legally named COVID and Corona. Their father explained that the names were intended as a permanent memorial, a way to remember the immense challenges and hardship the family endured and ultimately survived. For him, the names were not a joke, but a tribute to resilience, a marker of a time when the world stood still and his children entered it. This reasoning reveals a deep human impulse to mark history in the most personal way possible, to etch a global event onto the identity of a new generation. Yet, this act of memorializing forces us to confront a difficult question. While the parents lived through the fear, the lockdowns, and the loss, the children themselves did not. COVID and Corona will grow up bearing the names of a period defined by isolation, illness, and death, a narrative of suffering that is not their own personal story, but one they are forever tasked with carrying. Every introduction will be a reminder of a time most people would rather forget. They will constantly have to explain that they were born during the pandemic, not named after the virus itself out of some strange affection. The intention may be rooted in a desire to honor survival, but the effect is to tie two innocent lives to a universal trauma. It blurs the line between a family's personal triumph over adversity and the child's right to an identity unburdened by the world's collective pain. This choice asks us where the line falls between remembering history and forcing a new generation to wear its scars. A French court once intervened to stop parents from naming their daughter Nutella. The judges ruled that giving a child the name of a popular hazelnut spread would be against the child's best interests, likely leading to mockery and a lifetime of unkind associations. This legal move stands in stark contrast to the American approach, where such a name would almost certainly be accepted without question. The case forces a direct comparison between two very different philosophies. In many European countries, the state acts as a guardian of a child's future welfare, empowered to step in and block a name deemed potentially harmful. The United States, however, places a premium on individual liberty and parental rights, trusting that families know what is best for their own children, even when that choice is a brand of sweetened cocoa and nuts. So where is the line between a name that is charmingly cute and one that is purely consumerist? Nutella sounds sweet and melodic, but its primary identity is that of a product sitting on a grocery store shelf. It reduces a person's identity to a corporate logo, a decision made for them before they can even speak. The child becomes a walking, talking advertisement, forever linked to the company's fortunes and public image. Every introduction would require an explanation, and every first impression would be filtered through the lens of a breakfast condiment. While the intention might be rooted in a parent's genuine affection for the treat, the effect is to place a commercial burden on a child's shoulders. This case asks a difficult but necessary question. Does our love for a brand, no matter how delightful, ever justify turning a human life into its permanent mascot? A child named Batman carries the weight of a city on his tiny shoulders from his very first breath. This is not a nickname or a Halloween costume, but a legal identity tied to one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. The choice speaks to a powerful wave of parental nostalgia, a generation that grew up with comic books and blockbuster films now seeking to pass that legacy directly to their children. For these parents, Batman is more than a character. He is a symbol of resilience, justice, and unwavering moral code, a set of virtues they desperately hope to instill in their son. It is a fantasy of bestowing inherent heroism, a belief that the right name can act as a kind of incantation, summoning bravery and integrity into a child's life. Yet the reality of growing up as Batman is far removed from the dark, brooding fantasy of Gotham City. On the playground, the name is less likely to command respect and more likely to invite relentless challenges. Other children will constantly test him, daring the boy who calls himself Batman to prove he can live up to the name. Every moment of fear, every scraped knee, every instance of perfectly normal childhood uncertainty becomes a failure to embody his own identity. The name sets a standard of near-perfect courage and capability that no real, vulnerable human child could ever be expected to meet. It conflates parental wish fulfillment with a child's right to a blank slate, forcing a boy to wear a mask he did not choose long before he is old enough to understand what it truly means. The name Anakin carries a legacy of both immense power and profound tragedy. Taken directly from the Star Wars saga, it belongs to the boy who would become Darth Vader, one of cinema's most iconic villains. Yet, despite this character's devastating fall to the dark side, parents have chosen this name for their own sons, embracing it with a passion that transcends its fictional origins. This choice reveals the incredible power of modern fandom, where our connection to a story can become so deeply personal that we want to weave its threads directly into our own lives. For these parents, the name Anakin might not represent the fallen Jedi, but the hopeful, gifted child he once was, the podracing prodigy full of potential and raw talent. It speaks to a desire to reclaim the name from its dark destiny, to see it as a symbol of strength and uniqueness rather than its ultimate corruption. This act of reclamation highlights a fascinating separation between a name's narrative baggage and its sound, its feel, and its personal meaning to a family. In the quiet of a nursery far from the galactic empire, the name Anakin is stripped of its cinematic context and becomes simply a unique, powerful-sounding name for a newborn boy. It asks a compelling question about the stories we choose to live by. Are we bound by the fictional arcs created for a character, or can we take a name we find beautiful and write a new, happier story for it within our own families? This selective adoption shows that in the landscape of modern naming, a parent's love for a story can be powerful enough to eclipse even the darkest of plot twists. BRFXXCCXXMN PCCCCLLLMN PAR Rex VCLMNC KSSQLBB 11116 is a name that looks less like an identity and more like a cat walked across a keyboard. This legendary Swedish case from the 1990s was not a genuine attempt at a name, but a deliberate act of protest pushed to its absolute extreme. The parents, facing a fine for failing to register a name for their son by his 5th birthday, submitted this 40-character behemoth, claiming it was a profound, developed expression of their artistic and personal beliefs. They even provided a pronunciation guide, insisting it was spoken as Albin. The Swedish authorities, unsurprisingly, were not convinced and rejected the name, upholding the fine. This bizarre standoff represents something far deeper than a simple parental whim. It is the ultimate rebellion against state-controlled identity, a scream of defiance against any system that dares to define what a name can and cannot be. The parents were not just fighting for a unique name, they were challenging the very authority that grants names their power, arguing that personal expression should trump all bureaucratic rules. Yet, this protest also forces a difficult question about the child at the center of the storm. He was the unwitting participant in this ideological battle, his legal identity used as the primary weapon. While his parents fought for a principle, he would have been the one forced to live with the consequences, carrying a name so complex it would be unmanageable in any practical sense. This case lies at the furthest frontier of the naming debate, where the right to rebel clashes with the responsibility to provide a child with an identity that functions in the real world. It asks where protest ends and performance begins, and whether a child's future should ever be the canvas for such an extreme artistic statement. Northwest sounds less like a person and more like a compass point. As the daughter of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, this name concluded our journey through the 33 most absurd baby names, not with a bang of complexity, but with the quiet power of a simple direction. Its genius lies in its stark minimalism. In a world of increasingly elaborate and conceptual names, Northwest stands apart as two clean, strong, and instantly recognizable words. There is no need for explanation or decoding. Everyone immediately understands the reference, and that is precisely where its power resides. It transformed a geographic concept into a brand, a statement of identity that is both grounded and aspirational. This single name did more than just surprise the public. It fundamentally cemented a new trend among celebrities, moving beyond virtue names or fandom tributes and into the realm of location-based identity. It opened the floodgates for a new category of non-traditional naming, where a point on the map could become a person's legacy. In the years that followed, we saw the arrival of children named Saint, Chicago, and Psalm, completing a directional and spiritual set for the West family. Other celebrities followed suit, choosing names that evoked places and feelings rather than traditional roots. Northwest proved that a name did not need to be a sentence or a symbol to make a profound impact. It demonstrated that the ultimate act of celebrity naming could be to take something universal and claim it as uniquely your own, forever changing the landscape of what we consider a possible name and leaving a permanent mark on the cultural conversation. These names are not just random acts of parental whimsy, but windows into a powerful and complex human impulse. The drive to give a child a truly unique name often stems from a deep desire for the child to stand out, to be remembered, and to never be just another face in the crowd. In a world saturated with information and people, a name like Audio Science or Lin is a guaranteed way to ensure a child is noticed from their very first introduction. This can be an act of profound love, a wish to armor a child with individuality in a conformist world. For other parents, it is a form of personal expression, a way to publicly declare their passions, whether for a video game, a philosophical concept, or a brand they feel defines their lifestyle. The birth certificate becomes a canvas for their identity, a permanent piece of art signed with their child's name. And for some, particularly in cases of extreme protest names, it is a deliberate rebellion against tradition, a rejection of the bland and the expected in favor of something that challenges the very system that records it. Yet this immense freedom exists within a surprisingly lenient legal framework in the United States. Most states operate with remarkably few restrictions, typically only stepping in to block names that include obscenity, numerals, or symbols that cannot be processed by official databases. This creates a vast, open frontier for parental choice, a testament to the nation's foundational belief in individual liberty. But this freedom forces a difficult and recurring question. Where does a parent's right to self-expression end and a child's right to a functional, unburdened identity begin? This wild journey through 33 of the most absurd American baby names reveals a fascinating cultural tug-of-war. We have witnessed names pulled from social media, poison, and furniture, each one a unique testament to the powerful forces of parental freedom, creative expression, and the relentless human search for individuality. These choices, from hashtag to cyanide and IKEA, are not made in a vacuum. They are born from a beautiful desire to break from tradition, to honor a passion, or to make a statement that the world cannot ignore. Yet, every time a birth certificate is signed with a name like Talula does the Hula from Hawaii or Dovahkiin, we are forced to confront the same difficult question. Where does a parent's right to self-expression end and a child's right to a functional, unburdened identity begin? These names are lifelong gifts, but some come with a heavy price tag of explanation, judgment, and social challenge. They live in the delicate space between a family's internal world and the external society their child must navigate. So now we turn the question to you. After hearing about these 33, what is the most unusual or memorable name you have ever come across in your own life? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into the outer limits of American culture, be sure to subscribe for more fascinating insights.